Episode 790 of Car Con Carne. I'm James Van Osdell, and Car Con Carne is sponsored by SopelSolar.com. So it's the beginning of November. Winter's on the way, and with winter brings horrible weather in the Midwest. It's never good, and that means now is the time to jump on getting those solar panels in motion. Get them on the roof of your home so that you are ready to start saving immediately. The second those things go on, you start saving money, and it costs nothing out of pocket. Get it going now. It's the beginning of November. Head into the holidays feeling confident that you're taking charge of your finances and you're improving the value of your home. Brent Sopel, former NHL player, former Chicago Blackhawk, is the guy who's going to help you. Sopel, S-O-P-E-L, solar.com. Car Con Carne is also sponsored by 90 Days in the 90s, written by my friend Andy Fry. Do you miss the 90s? Do you miss grunge, punk, indie? All the great music from that decade? Well, what if you could time travel back there? Think about all the cool shows you could see, like the Pumpkins at Lounge Acts or Avalon. If you're planning a road trip for Thanksgiving, the holidays, the weeks to come, this is the book you want to be reading. 90 Days in the 90s, a rock and roll time travel story, the ultimate novel about the 90s and Chicago's music scene. Join record store owner Darby on her trip back to 90s Chicago as she jumps on the gray line and time travels back to her carefree 20s, soaking up all the pop culture, all the nostalgia. To learn more, go to 90daysinthe90s.com and get yourself a signed copy while there, or you can pick it up on Amazon or wherever you buy books. Now it's November. It really is. Now it's November, and I'm moving farther from those I love on Car Con Carne tonight. Three guys who make a lot of noise together. It's Alex, Xack, and Jake. It is the Linden Method, joining me from the remote studio.
Yeah.
Hi, hello.
Hi.
Nice to see and hear from
What's
you guys.
happening?
Is this your practice space?
Yes,
It
it
is.
You
It
can see my
is.
drum kit behind me.
Yeah, there's
I
a drum
love it.
set.
Very tastefully appointed,
Thank you.
suitable for rocking.
Zach's an interior designer.
In my spare time.
This is probably long overdue. I think the first time we talked over email or whatever was like 6 years ago, but you guys were chugging along long before we first made our love connection. And I guess let's start there. I mean, you've been the Linden Method or together for well over a decade at this point. So why don't you walk me through some history?
Yeah, we've actually been together for a while. TLM.
I actually don't know.
Yeah, okay. So I'll take this
Give
one.
us the
then,
story.
okay.
This is going to be great.
All right. Yeah. Is it? So yeah, 2012 was like when the Linden Method became TLM, the Linden Method, right? And that was Alex, Zach.
Nope.
No, not sorry. Alex, myself, not Zach. With a couple other people. Blah blah blah. But Alex and I have been together for a little longer than that, like 2009, 2008. I mean, him and I have been playing together for
13, 14
God,
years
what is
almost.
math?
Romantically speaking, we've been together for that long.
Yeah. Yes.
Sure.
My
Absolutely.
wife is not a fan of it, but you know,
No, but hey,
some partnerships are sacred.
Love
the
is
past
love,
is
bro.
the past is the past. Okay, we've moved on from that, right? It's all good blood. No bad blood though. You know. No, but so yeah, him and I have individually been playing together forever. But then TLM came together 2012, let's say, and yeah, we've been at it ever since. You know, I feel like we really found ourselves though in the last like 4 or 5 years though.
Sure. As soon
That's
as I
when we
joined
really
the band, it
became
sounds
like
like.
the music we're making now. This new album that we released, Grief.
Mm-hmm.
That really encompasses like what we are, who we are, what we have been for these last few years. So yeah, it's been a long haul. Earlier on, we were more on the super pop punky side, but now we kind of
Before that, we were a metalcore band.
yeah, and that was before TLM though.
Yeah. No, there were some metalcore early TLM songs too.
We had influences
Some
on them.
screamy,
but
yeah. So there's some screamy, very, very, very early stuff, and it's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can find it online if you want, but you shouldn't want
Well,
it.
there are some
It's not-
cool parts, but like overall, yeah, not
Yeah.
great.
Well, it's interesting, and I knew that about you. I knew that that was kind of in your deep,
Yeah.
embedded in your DNA. I think maybe I hear traces of that on Monsters Inside on Grief.
Kind of.
Some of the post-hardcore world, and that's kind of more a Zach's influence in the band. He's a post-hardcore. He'll tell you whether or not it's post-hardcore. He's a
Oh,
bit
he
of a
was.
post-hardcore elitist.
Yo.
I don't mean to be. I just have very passionate feelings about this topic.
At the desk that we're sitting at, there's literally a cartoon sitting up here about him being that.
That my girlfriend drew. It's very good.
You got to stand for something.
Yeah.
You got to own a position.
Yeah.
You're the post-hardcore guy.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I've ever believed in is punk rock, and what is post-hardcore if not the next evolution? So,
all right. So explain for our listeners who may not know, what is post-hardcore?
Take that, Zach.
that would be it's literally a genre of music that was born out of hardcore punk that took a lot of the aggression and the ideology towards it and expanded it beyond just being loud and fast and incorporated, dynamic to it and just really experimented with it the same way that like post-punk did in the 80s and that like post-rock does to this day.
What's the difference between post-punk and what's the other one?
Post-rock?
Post-hardcore? Post-rock?
Yeah, any of those.
Post-punk is what a lot of people think of as new wave. It's like goth stuff. It's your Joy Division. It's your
Stuff everyone loves.
Talking Heads, stuff like that.
That's great.
And then post-hardcore just has screaming vocals.
Then what's post-punk? What's a band?
Like Joy Division or the Talking Heads.
I thought that was
Really?
pretty-
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a genre that a lot of people know that don't realize that that's what it should be classified as.
I'd call it rock and roll.
I call everything rock and roll. It's
Everything's rock
easier.
and roll.
We're going to publish a flow chart kind of tracing the lineage of all these different directions to go along as a companion piece
That meme,
this episode.
that meme
I
of
would
Charlie
love
Day.
that.
Meme of Charlie Day, like
Yeah,
smoking a cigarette with all
Think
the
in the
fucking-
background like this is what it is.
It is a
Xack
deep
Brame
rabbit
music.
hole.
Yeah.
But this is the nerdiest thing I'm going to say to you guys, and you just kind of tapped into something unintentionally from my deep radio past. Are those RE20s you're holding up?
They sure are.
Sure are.
We used to have an engineer back at QN01 a million years ago who's like would defend RE20s to the death. Those were his mics, and we all had to learn how important they were to the overall broadcasting process.
Is that the Shure SM7B?
Indeed, it is.
That's what I've got.
You want to have nerdy conversations? You're in the right place, my friend.
Clearly, the Linden Method is the hookup. So Grief is the new album. We've teased this, the new album. I want to talk a little bit about it because it is really good, and I think you have hit your stride with this.
Thank you.
It opens up with the longest song on the album, and a song that really, I think, sets the table for the rest of what follows. Is this thing even on? Cool tempo changes. Talk to me about this song.
Yeah, so the song, I don't remember where it was written.
This was the seventh song that we wrote
that was
for
written
it.
for the album.
Yeah, we write songs and numbers, and then we give them names after.
Yeah,
Typical. Yeah.
song 7.
Yeah, I get that.
But when we started writing the album, we didn't have much of a concept. We were just writing to write, and if we liked a song, then it stuck around, and if not, then we got tossed. And then somewhere in the fourth, fifth song, we started really developing an arch for what we were trying to accomplish, and the idea, really, that we wanted to make meaning for the album, and that was figured out, part of the way through, like, what are these songs about? What are we trying to tell? What's our story here? And we noticed that my lyrics were all conveying different aspects of grief. And this is actually pre-pandemic, written and recorded. The album was completely done before COVID hit. We had a bunch of shows booked to come out to, and then boom!
Yeah.
Wait. So this is where your head was at before the pandemic. I can't imagine how fucked up you were afterward.
Oh, horribly.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, lots of addiction issues, I feel, and just all over the place there.
Wait, are you being serious or facetious?
No, facetious.
I mean, half and half. I picked up smoking in the pandemic because it was
yeah,
an
I guess
excuse
there
to
you
go
go.
outside, but
Yeah,
nothing serious. Yeah.
No, actually, I wrote a country album during the pandemic, so that really shows you how far how far down we went.
And we actually all did stuff on that too. We played on that a little bit. That was fun.
Yeah,
It was a
real
fun little
weird
creative thing to
spending a bunch of time alone.
All right, so let's spend some more time digging through what was in your head around the time of Grief. There's a song in there called Neuroses, which is just this manic, frantic piece. I mean, it is a literal version of Neuroses.
So I have a few mental illness issues. I have a Tourette's, I have OCD, and I have panic disorder. And so I'm, thankfully medicated for all of these. But when the medicine isn't doing as well, or if I'm ever off it, that's what it feels like to be in my brain.
Wow.
And that's what the song's about. I have very high anxiety states, and most of it, it runs your life if you allow it to. And that deep control is what I was trying to express through the music of how it's not you, it's this other thing. It's this thing that's controlling you, and you need to fight back against it and say, no, this is not me. This is not my choice. This is not who I am. This is this other thing living inside of me. And that's, where songs like Monsters Inside and Neuroses and all those kind of tap into for me.
We're monsters on the inside, and all the villagers the villagers all know. I mean, what a great line! And I really didn't know any of that about you. So this is super interesting that you would lay yourself that bare for people to hear and react to.
Yeah, I had, when I was a kid, I was terrified of it, and I realized the reason people made fun of it and you get bullied for stuff like that is really that people just don't know. They don't know what it's like. They don't understand that people have it. They don't understand the people that they have daily interactions with are dealing with things. And
are you talking about Tourette's or
all of them? Whether you have depression or
no, and honestly, so Alex and I lived together for nearly 10 years. And I don't deal with a lot of that stuff, right? So, like, for me, rewind 10 years ago, I'm one of those guys probably like, oh, that's all bullshit, whatever. It's just in your head. But, yes, it is in your head. Like, it's a fucking real thing.
Yeah.
And living with him, seeing all this happening, I'm like, this is somebody that I've known and loved for more than half my life, that I'm like, well, he wouldn't lie to me on how he feels or this and that. I'm like, damn, like, yeah, this is... And I would see it. I would see the way he would be when he's like on his meds and things are kind of regulated, or when he's not and it's kind of acting up. And I'm like, oh my God, like, yeah, this shit is kind of, people deal with this shit and people don't understand or know. I didn't understand or know until I experienced a lot with Alex. And then I saw a lot of it. I still don't even understand and know, but I know that I don't know that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense? It's kind of a weird way to say that.
You know what you don't know.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Right. So it was, it definitely educated me a lot.
And then, like, to also revisit the point you were making, I wanted to say that, like, I also feel like being radically honest and just laying yourself out there like that is the only way that you should be going about things like this. Nobody's going to benefit if you're just telling stories that you have no actual personal relationship to. And so I feel like something like this, where we're really putting something raw out there, I think just translates better. It's more honest. It's a better way to be.
Yeah. With the lyric writing, I've always been into poetry. I've always written, even in college, I took free writing classes. And so they allowed me to really have freedom with a lot of the lyrics. And I come to them with ideas and present to them, and, they kind of help me make decisions, but they've granted me that creative freedom in that category. And so I've been able to write just very honestly. And I think it's a disservice to the rest of the world to hide your story. I feel like, all we can do is benefit from learning more about each other. So as an adult, I've really gone out of my way to try to sit, and when people say, hey, why are you doing all those crazy things? Why is your face making all those, why are you making noises? Why? And I said, and I explained to him, what Tourette's is, or what having panic disorder is. And I have serious conversations, and they'll say, well, it's like that one episode of South Park where he just says fuck all the time. Right. And I'm like, no,
not at all.
But let me take the opportunity to, teach you a little more about these things. Yeah. And you're terrified of how others are going to judge you. It just, all of us are. I mean, we're all terrified, but that kind of tells you something, that if we're all terrified, it also means we can all be liberated by just being honest to each other. And so the whole album is really just an open, honest exploration of really the idea of grief and a self-reflection.
I love it. And I mentioned November indirectly at the beginning of our conversation, which is a song you led with from the album. I mean, really, if there is a more challenging month for mental health as the weather goes shitty and we're heading into the holidays, I don't know what it is. And now it's November.
I don't know if February exists.
February exists, but there's a glimmer of hope because spring's right behind it. I mean, for a lot of people heading into the holidays is an emotionally crushing period, and just it's a high stress period. Coming from radio, that's when everyone got fired. It's November's tricky, and I think you kind of encapsulate that on this song.
Well, in that song,
are you going to share with him what it's about?
Yeah, I'm going to share what it's about because it's literally a fuck about me.
I didn't tell him until just recently.
Okay, so funny fact, I just found this out like recently in like the last 2-3 months, and we wrote this.
I think it was right before my wedding.
We wrote this like 2 years ago.
Yep.
Just found this out. The song was about me. Because last couple years, first time I've ever dealt with any depression shit, like seasonal, really. Again, coming to these winter months.
Disorder, yeah.
You know, it started fucking me up. And like at first, I was just like, I'm just being lazy. But then like the next year, same thing again. I'm like, summers, I'm out and about. I'm high energy, everything. And then like I plummeted, right? This is actually the first year that I'm like catching it early on. I'm like, dude, let's get a hold of this. We're good. We're still going to have to deal with it, but let's deal with it in the right way now that you're aware of what you're going through, right?
Because knowledge is power.
Yeah, right? But, yeah, so he just told me the other month that, like, it was kind of about me. And I listened to the lyrics, I'm like, holy fuck. Yeah, that was those months that I was like, I lost my passion for everything. That's actually when we were going in the studio to record Grief. Leading up to it, I was excited, but I didn't care. I had no passion. I had no drive, no nothing. Once we were in the studio, I'm like, yep, this is awesome. Love it. Like, everything was there, 100%, right? So
once it started going, but do you remember that first day? He was actually really bogged down that first day.
Like couldn't. Yeah. I wasn't there mentally, everything, and it affects more than just that because I walked into something that I was so excited about. Didn't really get. It's not that I didn't give a fuck, but it was just like I didn't have that like full on 100% effort to go. Once we got going, it was different. It changed what we were going through, but what led up to that was leading into these months that I didn't want to practice. I didn't want to play. Other things in my life too, work, relationships, all of that. Holidays coming up, didn't really care about it. Family. Again, I'm not saying I don't care about these things. I'm just saying like because of all that, it was like I just,
No, yeah, when you're going through it, it's tough.
I was going through it, and that sucked.
And the lesson here, how great is it that you have each other as a support system? How important is it that you're able to verbalize this stuff with each other?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Having brothers and sisters like this, like these bonds that you have that are beyond any sort of friendship. That I just got married to my beautiful wife Juanita. Hi Juanita. And they're both my best man alongside with my family. They're my groomsmen. They're as much as family to me as my actual bloodline. And we've always been there for each other, and we've always been open and honest. Like when Fritz started dealing with that stuff, we all sat and we started talking about it. We said, hey man, like we think something's actually going on here. Like this isn't just No, it was weird. Like I said, I'm 30 years old, so I was like 28 at the time, and that was the first time I ever dealt with some type of mental issue. Right? I've never had that before.
Yeah.
So and me being me, I just kept punting it off like, oh no, it's just nothing. I'm just being lazy.
Yeah, I'm just tired.
Whatever. I'm just tired. Right? Now 2 years later, I'm like, fuck no, so seasonal depression. Shit, I go through that, I guess. Right?
That's for real.
Yeah.
So that song, a fun little thing about it, Fritz he had a real bad day. I believe it was the day before. And we had kind of talked about it a little bit, and I was tiptoeing around the subject because I didn't want to be offensive in any way to him. And, obviously that stuff can be sensitive. And I was, in my job, I get to go up to the tops of buildings downtown all the time. And I was sitting on the 5th floor penthouse of this building, and I was looking out over Chicago, and it was just gray, iced over, and it was November. And I went into the toilet, the bathroom up on that floor, sat down on the toilet and just started writing because I was like, there's something here. There's something to the stillness and this almost sadness that looking over the city has. And that was what captured.
Yeah. He was taking a poop and then thought of me.
As usual.
I think like all great songs have been written on the crapper.
That's probably true. They're at least half true. Yeah. I want to talk about a couple more songs. Again, the new release from the Linden Method is Grief. It is available now. Reverend to me feels a little bit like an outlier. Not that it doesn't fit in, but there's something going on there. It feels different.
No, I had when we wrote that, when we started it, I remember bringing the idea because, look, I'm a sucker for ballads, power ballads. I love like 80s hair metal and stuff, so love that stuff. But then I was like heavy into like the Lawrence Arms at the time. And I was like, man, we should write something kind of like this. And I just say that to them, and they're like, oh, yeah, we've also been listening to them a lot too. And then they just took it, and I was like, cool, hey, let's fucking do this because it's awesome.
Hey, Brendan, thanks for coming and hanging out during our album release.
That's awesome. And also on the album, as I was listening to it for the first time, I'm like, oh, shit, that's Devin Parker on Beautiful Strangers.
Yes,
sure is.
Love you, Devin.
Unmistakable voice.
Oh, my God.
Yeah,
I can listen to him sing forever.
One of the nicest, most talented dudes in the scene.
Yeah.
Period. Full stop. So that must have been fun to put together.
That was great.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that with Beautiful Strangers, we wanted to have we wanted a lot of dynamics on this album. That was part of what we did not want a straightforward skate punk album that could be defined. We wanted it to have ups and downs, ebbs and flows, and actually something we haven't even talked about is the whole album was written obviously as a concept album, but was put together specifically. If you listen to it, it will flow from song to song, one directly into another.
Yeah.
It's supposed to go as one long song that's supposed to simulate what it feels like to be watching a movie, a film score. So the climax, the apex you have towards the end of the song, it drops back down, you have the resolution, and Beautiful Strangers, that's the reason that song's on there in that way. It's this kind of like nihilistic, happy while unhappy ending, that there's just feeling of there's hope and there's beauty, but there's also kind of beauty in knowing that everything won't be okay, and that's okay too, that life moves on.
I've said it before, I think the act of album sequencing is kind of a lost art. I think
we spent a lot of time.
This was our first time doing it, and we really loved it because we spent so much time like, oh my God, this just gives it so much more.
And I mean, like, it's how you get songs like Beautiful Strangers, which is supposed to represent acceptance. Like, the whole record flows kind of along, like, the 5 stages of grief. Mm-hmm. So, like, that's how you also get song titles, like, Is This Thing Even On? Which is supposed to be, like, denial, and, like, instantly
anger,
goes into neuroses for anger. And, like, it flows kind of through that pretty heavily, which is really cool that we were able to tie that all together.
Xack is mostly to thank for that. He does all production work with that side, all the synthesizer work, pad work, all of that is his programming. And a lot of people don't know that he does all that stuff in the band, that we have that whole side to it. Because we actually produced the albums ourselves with just our buddy Joe Scaletta from Word of Mouth Recordings. We rent out a studio and we do the whole thing, just him and us, front to back. And so
and we had the most fun with this one too, because we spent the extra money to have the extra time, to where honestly we could just dick around in the studio and like have that availability.
It's a nice luxury, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so
nice.
We used to, being younger, early 20s, you want to spend the money to get the good product, but you're also broken in your early 20s. You're in a punk band, so you're like, all right, 2 days, let's record an entire full length. But we're like, no, we want time to toy with stuff, try things, have fun, record something that wasn't even on the album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We never had that luxury. It was just get it, do it, record it, put it out. We got it. But now we're like, no. Let's spend the time where we were already doing so much more for this record than we've done before. We're like, let's keep it going.
I love it. And again, the result is grief. And it makes so much sense now thinking about this as a concept. I mentioned, Is This Thing Even On? Is a great like kind of scene setter, and that makes sense. I mean, you really were thinking about this as here's the introduction, here's the opening salvo of this album, here's how we're setting the stage. I really well done, guys.
Well, thank you for giving us
so
the platform to talk about it, because without shows like this, and people don't really know who, there's really no marketing campaign we're going on trying to sell people on the album.
Yeah.
We're just putting the work in and saying, hey man, we hope that people get something out of this. And obviously shout out to people of Punk Rock Records who picked this album up.
Absolutely.
And they've been an incredible label. They've been awesome to work with. Everything they're putting out is awesome. I mean, every single thing they put out is killer. And so they've been great. Thank you guys. And I don't know where I'm going with that.
Well, okay, it's November 1st.
It's just the platform. You're giving us the platform
well,
to talk about.
I think the thing is, what he's saying is that, like, if we didn't have this availability to talk about what it all means, people would just put it on, listen to songs, call it a day, right? You know, and most people, if you did give them the whole album, they'd listen like, oh, that was really good, blah, blah, blah. But if you lead in and tell them like, oh, no, hey, there's actually this meaning behind it. There's this concept, lyrically and musically. Again, it starts off super heavy punk rock, skate punk, takes a dip in the middle with Reverent, like you were talking about, and then by the end you have this great song which featured Devin, Beautiful Strangers. It's like the resolution. So if you listen to it musically and lyrically, it all flows together. It's there for a reason. But doing this allows us to tell people that. So now if they've already listened to it, but they go back, they're going to find more than they didn't hear before.
Yeah.
Or if it's your first time listening, you know to kind of look out for this now.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely.
Which is cool. That's what we want. You know,
we spent a lot of time putting the nuance in it.
I feel like a lot of people on the lower level of things, like where we're at, you know, don't do a concept album, and we didn't even plan it. It just happened.
It's not just. I mean, we're in very much an a la carte culture. We're in a singles culture, and that's the results of the internet. I mean, that's it's definitely an ADD way of digesting music, and it's everything's on demand. So I do applaud you having a complete artistic vision and raising your hand, saying, "Here's what it is," and pay attention to this. I think that's right.
You know, it was actually, speaking of Lawrence Arms, I was reading an interview that Brendan did, and he said, you know, all of our albums are concept albums, and he said, yeah, you can make albums the other way, but once you've done one, it was something along the lines of like, why the fuck wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you, if you're going to spend all this time on your art, why not make it worth something? Why not have a greater meaning and put more behind it? And that with like Metropole, that album just, it resonated with me, that when they put that album out, that, you know, it's about how lonely you can feel in a city where you're right next to so many people. And that album left such an impression on me that it really pushed me to talk with these guys and, you know, making this a reality.
Yeah. So it's November 1st, 2022. What does the rest of the year look like for you? Shows, stuff, what's going on?
We did most of the show stuff that we were planning on doing. If a good show pops up, then we'll take it. But for the most part, this is when we like to write. This is the time of year when you're stuck inside, spending time with family, and that's our favorite time. It seems like every year this is kind of the same cycle, that you go and play a bunch, you know, do everything out and about, and then you kind of come back in and start to reflect on what you've done and what you want to do artistically next.
Chicago is a woodshedder's town. That's what artists do. In the winter, they practice, they write, they perfect what they do.
Who likes lugging back and forth to shows when it's fucking 10 degrees outside?
10 degrees, everything's icy. It's literally dangerous to walk.
Knowing that the people who said they were coming out to the shows on your Facebook event probably aren't, because they feel the same way about the weather. Yeah.
Nobody wants to go out.
Yeah.
But, I mean, hey, someone wants to offer us something, give us a shout.
We're here to play, but we just, you know, I guess we don't actively
we just don't really look out for it. It's like, it's cold. We don't want to be outside. We'd rather be inside enjoying ourselves.
Welcome to the Midwest. All right. The Linden Method. The new release is great. It's fantastic. Thank you for being so candid and forthright. I didn't know any of this about you, and I really, it was an eye-opening conversation.
Absolutely.
Dude, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.